May I add my welcome to what I think is going to be a very exciting afternoon today. We have an absolute dazzling array of speakers. I don't think anybody would challenge that. And I do congratulate you, David, for putting it together. And there's speakers from absolutely every part of the Brexit family, so to speak. I suppose we're all here, well, I hope we're all here because we believe that there would be the good life after Brexit. I certainly do, and I have done for a very long time. David mentioned the trade figures. Now, speaking as an economist who actually did used to work on the balance of payment statistics when I was in the civil service, didn't I have all the fun? But the figures yesterday were pretty grim. We had a 125 billion goods deficit with the world. 89 billion of that deficit was with the EU alone, and nearly 32 billion of that EU deficit was with Germany. 32 billion, that's 1.5% to 2% of GDP. That is not trivial. And the idea that our EU trading partners would want any disruption to their trade if Brexit is just fanciful. It is simply not in their interests. And of course, if we left, then we'd be able to repeal or amend some regulations. As Stephen was saying, we'd be able to negotiate our own trade deals, which we can't do at the moment. And of course, we'd be able to have a non-discriminatory immigration policy between EU and non-EU nationals. What's not to like? Added to which, of course, we wouldn't have to be a net contributor to the EU budget. And I was going to say, all has changed, or so much has changed, out of recognition since 1973 when we joined the EEC, and I do remember it very well because I was a young, incredibly young civil servant. And at that time, I was told the United Kingdom was the sick man of Europe. We had lost an empire and not found a role. And indeed, to be a civil servant was all about managing decline in this country. And joining the EEC was sort of seen as a last desperate measure to get this country back onto its feet. Well, suffice to say that the world has moved on. And I do think this country's got its pep back. I know there are bumps and scrapes along the road, but that's how life is. And all I can say is about the EEC, or the EU as it now is, that all that pep that it may have had back in the 1970s is well and truly gone. Even the best performing of the major economies, Germany, is growing now very, very slowly. And we know that the EU is beset by crises. The migration crisis perhaps is the obvious one, but my goodness me, the Eurozone crisis has not gone away. And when people talk about uncertainties in Brexit, I would say, well, what about the uncertainties of actually staying in the EU? Because believe me, those uncertainties are just as potentially catastrophic.